We had a trial today. It's an appeal of a ridiculous verdict of a woman I have never met. I don't know. I have no idea who she is. She wrote a book and she made a ridiculous story up. She put it in her book, and we're now appealing the decision. We had an extremely hostile judge appointed by Clinton, very good friends of Clinton. And before I start, I have no idea who this woman is. They have a picture from, they say, about 40 years ago, a picture. And the picture depicts her and her husband on a celebrity line where I was the celebrity. I was been a celebrity for a long time. And they were shaking my hands along with hundreds of other people. Nobody even knows where it is. The problem is she doesn't know the date of this incident. She doesn't know when. She doesn't know, was it in the 90s? Could it have been further than that? She has no idea when. And people do that because you don't want to give a specific date and then you find out that Trump or whoever it was in Europe. So they tend to do that. They take long periods so that this way, hopefully he was in New York at that time. But this is a disgraceful case, and disgraceful in particular because it's about a former president of the United States who is now leading in the polls to be the president again. And this is being worked with the DOJ, Department of Justice, as are all of these cases. But she made up a story, it's fabricated 100%, that I attacked her at Bergdorf Goodman. You know, it's very interesting. I don't think they were allowed to use this either. Her favorite show is Law and Order. And there's a almost exact story as her story in Law and Order about being attacked in the dressing room of a department store. I don't know if they used the name of the store. But that's her favorite show, Law and Order. She said that. And anyway, this evolved into a defamation case against me because I disputed her words because I told the truth. We were called. I was in the White House, and I said, no, it never happened. I didn't even know what they were talking about. This was, I think I was in the Oval Office. Sir, do you know anything about this? And this had to do with the book, and she had a few pages in a book making this claim. By the way, there was never a claim. There was never a police report. There was never anything mentioned. There was never publicity 30 or 40 years ago, whenever it took place. Nobody knows. She doesn't know when it took place. When did it take place? She has no idea. She thinks it was in the 1990s. She thinks it was in the 1990s. And the judge, we had two trials. We asked for a consolidation. He said no. The reason he said no is he'd rather have double the publicity because that's bad for me. Very bad, because I'm running for president. And this is not the kind of publicity you like. So think of the impracticality of this. I'm famous. I'm in a plane. People are coming into the plane. And I'm looking at a woman, and I grab her, and I start kissing her and making out with her. What are the chances of that happening? What are the chances? And frankly, I know you're going to say it's a terrible thing to say, but it couldn't have happened. It didn't happen. And she would not have been the chosen one. She would not have been the chosen one. Today at the trial, they didn't mention the dress. So the Monica Lewinsky type dress was a big part of the trial. Big part of the trial. I said, why didn't you mention that? And I heard there was a dress involved. And I wasn't frightened at all because I did nothing with her. Never touched this woman, saw this woman, had no idea who she was. But they have a dress, sir. I said, so what? Well, sir, it's very... They used that dress to try and intimidate me. They used that dress with the public. That dress was such a famous dress. It was Monica Lewinsky, Part 2, the dress. And the judge wanted it for trial. and it was going to go into trial. And then they found out there was nothing on the dress, which I knew. And then the judge wouldn't allow it to be used. So they used it as a cudgel. They used it as a hammer over my head. And then the judge, when he heard that it showed totally negative, the judge wouldn't allow us to use it at trial. Ridiculous. It's a ridiculous case. Remember, it never happened. It was made up for political reasons. And the DOJ is behind everything. Every one of these cases. It's political interference. It's a witch hunt, just like the fake Russia scam was a witch hunt. And just like they want to start that scam all over again by announcing that Russia, we're talking about. And you know what they do when they do that? They intimidate people from having a fair election. They intimidate poll workers from speaking up when they see crooked things take place in the election. And it's a disgrace. Our country's in serious trouble.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Will Scharf. I'm one of President Trump's attorneys. Today we presented oral argument before the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in one of two cases brought against President Trump by E. Jean Carroll. Now, it's really important to remember that E. Jean Carroll's story at its heart is an utterly implausible he said, she said story. There is no corroboration for anything she has ever claimed about President Trump. There are no corroborating witnesses. As President Trump alluded to, there is not confirmatory DNA. No police report was filed at the time of this alleged incident. She was unable to identify when this incident occurred until quite recently. No surveillance evidence or witnesses have ever been found or come forward confirming any aspect of E. Jean Carroll's story. In light of that, in light of the utter implausibility of the story that E. Jean Carroll was attempting to sell to the jury in this case, her attorneys introduced evidence that should have never seen the inside of a courtroom. Utterly insane efforts to introduce propensity witnesses, Jessica Leeds and Natasha Stoynoff, most notably, in an unfair and improper effort to buttress E. Jean Carroll's failed attempt to assault President Trump. Jessica Leeds' story is instructive here. This is a woman who claims that in the middle of a crowded airliner in 1979, President Trump assaulted her. Leeds has never been able to identify where this plane departed from, where it went to, the date of the flight in question, making our efforts to disprove her testimony extremely difficult. Under the federal rules of evidence, this story should have never been allowed to be presented to the jury in this case. The same is true of Natasha Stoynoff's story, which again lacks any indicia of reliability, any sort of credibility, any sort of confirmatory testimony from other witnesses, or anything else that would make you believe that this actually happened. So on the one hand, you have a judge who allowed in this improper propensity evidence that should not have been allowed in. In our view, that polluted the jury's deliberations in this case. That presented a story to the jury of a series of a pattern of conduct that the jury should not have been considering. And we think that absent that propensity evidence, no fair jury could have reached the verdict that was reached in this case. And as a result, we believe that this verdict needs to be overturned. But there's more than that. In addition to this improper propensity evidence, President Trump and his trial team were prevented from cross-examining E. Jean Carroll and other witnesses on crucial issues in particular relating to political coordination and the political motivation behind this entire lawsuit. This is a lawsuit that was instigated in large part by George Conway, a longtime political foe and adversary of President Trump. This is a lawsuit that was funded by Reid Hoffman, a key political ally of the Biden-Harris administration and a major Democrat donor. We were limited in the evidence we were allowed to present at trial about these crucial facts. We were prevented from cross-examining E. Jean Carroll on aspects of that dynamic that underlies this entire lawsuit. And that, too, unfairly corrupted the jury's deliberations in this case and requires reversal of the jury verdict. I think this political coordination point is particularly important, though. It's important to emphasize, because what we have seen in the last few years is a weaponization by the Biden administration and by their political allies of our legal system and of our courts to unlawfully, unconstitutionally interfere with President Trump's core First Amendment right to run for president. That is a right guaranteed to him by the Constitution. That is the right that his political opponents are attempting to strip away from him. We have seen this in case after case after case where unfair political motives have underlay what should be serious legal proceedings. And I think when you look at this situation in toto, when you look at what the left, when you look at what the Biden-Harris administration is attempting to do to President Trump, this is insane. This is an absolute abuse of our legal system. It's an absolute abuse of the rule of law. It should be deeply offensive, not just to political supporters of President Trump, but to each and every American. With respect to today's appeal, we are hopeful that the Second Circuit understands what's at stake here. We are hopeful that the Second Circuit understands what occurred during this trial, which was an improper use of evidence to buttress E Jean Carroll's entirely meritless claims on the one hand, and an improper exclusion of evidence that would have informed the jury about the true motivation behind this lawsuit and that we believe would have resulted in a very different verdict. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I've done this one too many times, actually too many times for the last 3.5 years while President Trump has been trying to fight to get this country back. And I want to speak to the American women, and I want to speak to the people that need to get out and vote on November 5th. I have sat with President Trump for years now while he has been targeted with lies and with judges, AGs, and DAs who have specifically run in this city and others on getting Trump. The Trump administration will fix this problem. We will stop Kamala Harris's regime, because she was there, let's not forget that, and she still is, of using officials from the White House, putting them in DA's offices, in AG's offices, and attacking your political opponent. And this country deserves better than this. We do. We should not be sitting here at a press conference talking about this. We did this in 2016, and every woman had no reports. They come out when it's election time. And as a woman who has stood with President Trump, who has spent extensive time with President Trump and with his beautiful family, I will tell you, that is not President Trump, and I completely am disgusted by what I have seen happen to this person, his family, and the Trump organization that we stand in right now. You must vote Donald Trump back in, because as an attorney, as a woman, as a mother, our future of this country depends on it, and we need to stop this from happening. The DOJ is supposed to help our country and protect us, not attack us, because you cannot win in the polls. Thank you.